Welcome to the Week 14 DFS edition of the Fantasy Football Brothers podcast. My name is Blake, and I'm here with my younger brother Carson as we talk about all the players on this slate that we like. How you doing, Carson?
I'm doing very well, and I'm ready to jump right into it. So I can start with Brady. Tom Brady, who had 32.6 DFS points last week. I think in 6-point TD passing, he led the league for the week for QBs. So he was on track for 80 passing attempts. He only ended up with 51. I say only, but still had a tremendously great day. And now he's facing the Bills, and you might be like, whoa. The Bills secondary is really difficult to throw against, but we're talking about Brady in a Super Bowl matchup is the caliber of this matchup, so I expect him to show up, and you definitely have the stacking opportunities with Evans, Godwin, Gronk, and Fournette. We'll talk about a few of them, if not all of them, later on in the show. So he's not super cheap, but you're getting a big game time Brady that I think will do very well for you. You got anything to add, Brady fan?
Yeah. So $7,600, not the highest priced quarterback. Surprisingly, that's Patrick Mahomes. But I guess, sort of unsurprisingly, since he's playing the Raiders that he absolutely torched back in Week 10.
Yes.
That being said, Tom Brady at home against a high-quality opponent, I think it's going to be... we talked about it in the regular season show. We said that we were confident that Tampa Bay and that offense is going to take the over on Buffalo's defensive averages. So we like those options, and it's really hard to root against Brady.
It is at this point in his career for sure. So we'll move on to Justin Herbert, 7,100 against the Giants. So that's a great matchup in Los Angeles. Herbert's past 3 games, he's been on a good hot streak. He's had 300 plus passing yards in each of those 3, which gives you a DFS bonus. And he's thrown for 3, 2, and 3 passing TDs respectively, while he hasn't done much on the ground. Well, actually, in week 11, he had 90 rushing yards, so that's surprising, but you're not really expecting that from Herbert, but he can get it done. So I just expect him to have a really good game. Keenan Allen officially will not be playing. Mike Allen's is likely playing according to the coach, but watch for that. But either way,
Mike Williams.
What did I say?
Mike Allen.
Mike Allen? Keenan Allen's brother. Yeah. He won't be playing either, but Mike Williams might be. And I just expect Herbert to get it done against this Giants defense that doesn't scare you at all. And yeah, he's been on a hot stretch, and that's why his price has gone up a little bit. It's the first time he's been over 7,000 since week 10. But I think you're paying for what you're getting for Herbert.
Yeah, this is kind of the opposite argument for Brady, just because it's they're playing the Giants. So... the defense doesn't scare you, and you like his remaining weapons, especially in Ekeler and maybe a unfamiliar face that we'll talk about later. But let's go ahead and move on to Taysom Hill, who
yes.
I think most
value
people...
pick of the week.
Oh, absolutely. And it's crazy because I believe on FanDuel he's like $7,700.
Wow.
The discrepancy in the prices is absolutely astronomical. So yes, Taysom Hill at $5,600. He is on the road, but he's playing the Jets. Come on now. We just watched Gardner Minshew have a great fantasy day against them.
Minshew mania.
So, yeah, and that was great to see. And I played him last week in DFS, and he did pretty well for me. But yeah, Taysom Hill this week. He had 4 turnovers last week against Dallas. I expect that number to come down. He had two passing touchdowns on 264 passing yards, 11 carries for 101 yards. That's the stat that really stands out for us here. Against the Jets, I expect more of the same, and it's just a great matchup. It's a great price. I think it's going to be a very popular tournament play in lineups.
I do agree. He's hard to pass up on that price. So I guess we can transition to running backs, and if you want to talk about the top tier guys of Ekeler, Kamara, and Fournette.
Yeah, let's get right into it. So kind of going along the same lines with his quarterback, Justin Herbert, they're playing the Giants, and they are at home. Ekeler he's one of those receivers, or you would think he's a receiver by the number of targets he gets.
Exactly.
But he's a running back that is just a target monster. Averaging, let's see, it looks like 7 a game.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, in the past 3 weeks, and obviously has the rushing potential. He's getting low teen carries and, 4 to 5 to 6 receptions in a game. So all of those things are positive aspects of his game. And without Keenan Allen, I could expect that number to get a little bit higher. Those targets and those receptions to climb a little bit higher than he's been averaging lately. So there's upside there. Even at 8,300, he is the most expensive running back. But I think that it's worth paying up for, given the matchup and everything else that we've discussed.
He also has 7 total touchdowns in the past 4 games. So that's he also has that incredible floor with the boom potential of just the touchdowns.
Yeah, great upside. I like that a lot. Let's pivot to Alvin Kamara. So, again, Alvin Kamara. I mean, quick, off the top of your head, name 3 of New Orleans' wide receivers.
Deontay Harris, Lil Jordan Humphrey, and Traquan Smith. But that was really difficult. And
Yeah,
none of them are
Deontay
fantasy
Harris.
relevant.
And Deontay Harris, you forgot Marquez Callaway, but
Oh, yes.
Deontay Harris is suspended, so
wow.
this receiving core is even less important than they were before with him gone. Alvin Kamara, another guy in low, if not, I mean, we've seen him get 20-plus carries this season. I don't necessarily expect that to happen with Taysom Hill there. I think it's going to be more of a low teen carry for hopefully both of them. And then on the receiving end, 22 targets over the last 3 games, so a little over 7 targets a game. Again, I could see that number being around there or even higher. His season high is 10 receptions in 1 game. That would be great for DFS, and it could certainly happen against the Jets. I mean, I think that it's going to be a 1-2 punch between Taysom and Kamara. It's going to be a backfield mismatch there.
And Mark Ingram's inactive with COVID, right? So you're not worried about that 1-2 punch. So I think the stack of Hill and Kamara could be very, very strong. Uncle Lenny, go ahead.
Yeah, Uncle Lenny. So here's what I'll say about him. Again, surprisingly, and this is someone that we didn't anticipate having this kind of impact on the roster, but he's been a target monster, and he's really not that kind of player that you're not the player that you expect to be like that, but he has been. I mean, 8, 6, and 9. Those are the number of targets he had in the past 4 weeks, and he's delivering on most of those. I mean, Brady is getting it to him very consistently. He's got 7, 6, and 8 in receptions in those 4 weeks. So you love that. We've seen him get 3 on the ground against Indianapolis back in Week 12, so he has the rushing upside. And I mean, it's really $7,400 at home. We saw New England run all over Buffalo in a game where everyone in the stadium knew what New England was going to do, and they still couldn't stop them. So I like Fournette here. We talked about it in the regular season edition, and I feel good about him at that price. I think he's going to pay off for a lot of teams.
I agree, and I also just noticed that those 3 top-tier running backs are on the same team of all 3 quarterbacks we talked about. So, stack potentials for sure. We can move on to the next tier. Antonio Gibson, Javonte Williams, and Chuba Hubbard. I'll start with Gibson. 3 of his last 4 games, he's had 20-plus fantasy points. 3 of his last 4 games, he's had 20-plus carries. The outlier for that is 19, or the one that was not included is 19, so he was close to it there. And he's had 2 receptions, not a ton. 0, that was against Carolina. That was his 1 week with less than 20 fantasy points. Then 7 receptions and 5 receptions. And I do think J.D. McKissic looks like he's going to be playing. Isn't that correct?
Currently listed as questionable.
Okay, questionable. You like him even more without McKissic because McKissic can be a TD scounger from Gibson, but either way, he can get it done even with McKissic there. He's getting the workload, he's looking legit, and he's facing a Dallas defense that isn't amazing, so you're not really worried about that. I expect Gibson to continue his role in his hot streak and do very well in a divisional matchup that would be a big win for the football team. We can move on to Chuba Hubbard. Obviously, the unfortunate news in Week 12 of McCaffrey suffering an injury that will put him out for the rest of the season, opening the door for Chuba Hubbard to reinsert himself back in that role that he was in earlier this season. And earlier this season, he only had one 20-plus fantasy point game. But that was a game with 24 carries and 101 yards. So, he has the potential to do that. And this Falcons defense is not strong at all. So, I expect him to be able to continue that. And we saw what Leonard Fournette did with receptions against them. So, Chuba could get involved in that avenue as well. So, that adds to his floor even more. We talked about how the rest of his schedule isn't super strong, but this week is good, so that's good for DFS. And then Javonte Williams. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, this is probably the last chance you're going to be able to use Chuba reliably in DFS because, like we said, the matchups coming up are just so difficult.
Yeah. And then Javonte Williams. Obviously, he might challenge Hill, that's hard to do, Taysom, as the biggest value play if Gordon is out. But even if Gordon is playing, this is such a good matchup against the Lions, who I think are the bottom 5 for the amount of points and yards they allow for running backs. So there'll be enough to go around. I mean, you saw what happened in Week 9 in Dallas with Gordon and Williams just going off, both of them, because the Broncos team is happy to use both of them if they can, and I think it will work this week against Detroit because they're not a very strong defense. 3 of his last 4 games, he's had 110 plus total scrimmage yards, and 3 of those games are with Gordon, so I don't think you're super scared even if Gordon plays with him, and you're only paying $5,900, so it's not like he's got a floor that I think is very safe for that price. So I like him and love him if Gordon is out, but like him. So
yeah, Melvin Gordon. Not to rain on your parade, but Melvin Gordon was a full participant in practice, so it's looking like he's going to play. He was very close to playing last week, and they held him out. So
but you see the talent. See the talent of Williams.
Yeah, it's difficult to go away from that. But so we talked about some really good options at 6K or just below. Let's talk about some guys that are right around the 5K or lower mark. So I'll start with Deonta Foreman at $5,100 playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. He will be at home. And the thing here is, Dontrell Hilliard, he had a good game, popped off a big run, and that made him a more lucrative running back in last week's matchup. Yeah. We do kind of expect Jeremy McNichols to be a little bit more involved this week as he was inactive the previous week. And that's going to affect Hilliard more than it will Deonta Foreman, just based on how those players, their play style. So I kind of expect Deonta Foreman to kind of slide more into the lead rusher, and he should get most of the carries on the first and second down. Should have most of the goal line opportunities, I would imagine. And you like the matchup against Jacksonville. Yeah. We saw what Sony Michel was able to do against them, and given the opportunities, I think that Deonta Foreman can deliver pretty well in that position. Yeah, and then some real low balls here. $4,400 for each of these players: Jeff Wilson Jr. and Ty Johnson. So we know that Eli Mitchell is out this week due to concussion. And so Jeff Wilson is the next man up. We know that the San Francisco running back is a valuable position in fantasy and in DFS as well. So, at $4,400, they are on the road at Cincinnati. Doesn't really scare you too much. And I think he's going to get the workload. There will be some inclusion of JaMychal Hasty, but I think most of the touches will go to Jeff Wilson. On the other hand, Ty Johnson at home against the Saints. I kind of expect, if they're going to be competitive in this game, with some of the receivers that they have been questionable throughout the week, like Elijah Moore, I think that Zach Wilson's going to have to rely on some dump-offs, and that could open the door for Ty Johnson to get involved. Obviously, I'd feel a lot better if one of the other quarterbacks was playing for the Jets, but because that's where we really saw Ty Johnson get involved in the passing game. but I think that he can. I think he can get a. I mean, this is 4,400 people.
Exactly.
We gotta, yeah, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here in terms of running backs. These are value plays, and I think that it's not the best matchup, but it's kind of a different role that Ty Johnson plays. He's not a lead back in terms of carries. He has only one double-digit carry game, and that was back in week 2. So things are kind of settling in where he is the pass-catching back, and in a game where we expect the Jets to be behind, I think you can like that position for him.
Agreed. We can move on to wide receivers, the top guys. I'll talk about Godwin, Lockett, and Evans, but first I'll just lump together Godwin and Evans. And honestly, it's all the same analysis that we had of Brady. I mean, Godwin last week had 15 receptions on 17 targets, and Evans had 7 receptions on 10 targets. And what allowed that to happen is because Brady threw the ball 51 times. So I expect them to be able to get each of them to get their fair share if you wanted to play both of them, or just you can safely play one of them and with upside of them getting touchdowns as well. I don't think neither of them had a touchdown last week, but both returned respectable fantasy days. So, yes, like both Godwin and Evans. And Lockett, you're facing the Texans, so you're not worried about that matchup at all. Russell Wilson, obviously, we've talked about that in the regular season show. Since he's returned from his finger injury, he's not been the same Russell Wilson, but Lockett has sneakily been kind of the most consistent he's been all season in the past 3 weeks, where he's put up 18, 12, and 19, almost 20. He's getting targets 5, 5, and 8. Not a ton, but you're getting a player that breaks off and gets huge plays and has the boom potential and gets touchdowns. I mean, this is someone who scored like 40 or 50 fantasy points before, so he has the boom potential. And I think at 6,700, it's not as risky as Tyler Lockett would probably usually seem in your DFS lineup.
Yeah, and one thing I'll include is since Russell Wilson's return, has played Arizona, a hot Washington football defense, and San Francisco. Yeah. So I mean, those are 3 teams that are, especially with the football team being included there, consistent performers on the defensive end.
That's true.
I think that this is a great opportunity for Wilson to kind of get right and capitalize on playing a stinky Texans team.
That is true. I mean, at the beginning of the season, weeks 2 through 4, Lockett was over 7,000, so you're getting a discount. And yeah, we don't feel as confident of DK, but I wouldn't be surprised if he returns value too. But Lockett has been a little bit more consistent even in Russ's slump. But yeah, I think the matchups have a lot to say about that. But we can move on to, you can talk about Hunter Renfrow and Mike Williams if you want to.
Yeah, I want to. We've been talking about Hunter Renfrow pretty much as long as we've been doing this podcast. He's just been extremely reliable. We can see in Week 10, last time they played Kansas City, he got you 17.5 fantasy points, 7 catches on 9 targets for a touchdown and 46 receiving yards. This guy is just getting a lot of looks. I mean, excluding Week 11 in the past 4 games, so I'll say this. He's had 9 or more targets in 4 of his last 5 games, and he's exceeded 100 receiving yards, which provides a 3-point bonus in DFS in his previous 2 weeks. So he's coming on, and it's exciting to watch. I think he's got a great opportunity to do something very similar to what he did in Week 10 on the road against Kansas City, not a defense that scares you. And then along those same lines, Mike Williams, if he plays, and that is kind of an if at this point, but Coach Staley says he should play on Sunday against the Giants. Without Keenan Allen, you could easily see Mike Williams getting 10-plus targets like he was earlier in the season. So he has the upside. I mean, and this has been a guy that has been up and down thus far after that initial boom. But I like his opportunity in this offense against a bad Giants defense. And without Keenan Allen, I think some more targets head his way, and he can capitalize on those.
Yep, I like that a lot. It's crazy to be talking about Mike Williams like he's a safe play, but with Keenan Allen out, I definitely feel like that is the case if he plays. We can talk about our very cheap options, both at 3,400, Laquan Treadwell and Jalen Guyton. Laquan Treadwell, he is a Jaguars wide receiver, if you don't know who he is. He has had 4 receptions in his past 2 games and 5 and 8 targets, respectively. So I expect that to continue to be at that level. And they're playing a Titans team that they'll probably be behind, most likely. And the Titans are also easier to pass against than run against. So that plays into that game script. So I expect him to continue to get targets and receptions. And if he finds the end zone, you're getting a astounding value at 3,400. So I like him a lot. And then Jalen Guyton, last week had 4 receptions for 90 yards and a touchdown. He had a deep touchdown. He's been in this team all year, but hasn't been super involved. But with Keenan Allen confirmed to be out and Mike Williams potentially being out, and I like Guyton even more if Williams is out, obviously, but I like him currently, even if Williams plays, because then he kind of fits into that number 2 role, if you're not considering Ekeler as in that number 2 role. So yeah, those are 2 guys at 3,400 that I think could save you a lot of money and also return value for you.
Yeah, I like those.
Yeah, and then Blake, you can talk about Kittle and Gronk.
All right, so George Kittle, we saw what he did last week. I mean, my goodness, he absolutely went off for 42.5 fantasy points. This is a similar situation. It's looking unlikely that Deebo Samuel's going to play, and in his absence, we kind of expect George Kittle to shoulder that load on offense.
Yeah, apparently it's not IU because we talked about him last week, but he didn't really live up to that. So I think Kittle,
yeah,
I agree.
George Kittle's playing more like George Kittle lately. Of course, if you exclude the game where he had 1 catch on 2 targets against Minnesota. But yeah, he's playing strong and coming off of a huge performance. I think that the absence of Deebo is really going to help him this week if that's the case. Again, $6,900. He's the second priced tight end, but we've seen that obviously he can pay for his price and then more pay off for you. And then Rob Gronkowski. I mean, it goes along the same lines. We're pounding this Buccaneers lineup here, but it's true. I mean, these are the guys that have value on this offense. Tom Brady is playing very, very strong now, heading into the final stretch of the season. And Gronk has just been really reliable. I mean, it goes without saying that he is putting up touchdowns, he's putting up the yards, he's getting good target amounts. Just a solid all-around at 6K.
I agree, and then we can go down to kind of a mid-tier, and I'll let you because you have him in your eye more than I do, but Dawson Knox.
Yeah, so if you want to go on the other side of this game, because I think there's going to be a lot of passing in this game, and we know that is the focal point of the Buffalo offense. It's through the air with Josh Allen. Dawson Knox has averaged around, 6, 3, and 10 for his previous 3, and 6 that came in the game where 50-mile-an-hour winds were blowing around. So the fact that he was getting that amount of targets in a game like that in those conditions, that's promising. But that being said, he has scored some touchdowns this year. He's got 7 on the season, so he's getting the end zone looks from Josh Allen. Yeah, I like him this week. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and if you want to kind of diversify yourself from people playing Gronkowski, I think Knox is a great option.
I agree. We can wrap up on the lower tier of tight ends with Ricky Seals-Jones at 3,600 and Austin Hooper at 3,400. And honestly, all the analysis I need to do with Ricky Seals-Jones, because he's been out for a few weeks, is we remember what he could do when Logan Thomas was out, and Logan Thomas has been placed on IR, so he's definitely not going to be playing this game. And I expect Ricky Seals-Jones to slot right back into that valuable football team tight end role and to just continue to be a strong option for you. Terry McLaurin has been struggling. I do expect him to probably do better than he has been, but I do think there'll be plenty to go around for Ricky Seals-Jones, especially at 3,600. And then Austin Hooper, He's mainly just there because, I mean, we've seen the talent. I think it was 2 years ago when he was on the Falcons, and he was like a very strong tight end play.
Yeah, like a top 3 tight end. Yeah.
Yeah, so he has the talent, but fantasy-wise, since he's been at the Browns, he's kind of been put in a cap on by Njoku and other people that they throw in at tight end. And Njoku will be out with, I think, on the COVID list.
Yes.
So he's the only other tight end name that really concerns you is taking away targets from Hooper at the tight end spot. So Hooper is the clear tight end for the Browns against the Ravens, and I just expect him to be a safe play at 3,400. I mean, the last time they played the Ravens, he had 0 receptions, so you don't like that, but this is a new situation that we're talking about now, and at 3,400, I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you guys for listening. Good luck in your matchups this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Peace out.